Good morning, folks, and welcome to Three's In. Today you're in for a treat. I'm going to begin a series of 5 stories that I heard from Sam Morgan. Now, Sam Morgan is somewhat of a legend in the F-105 community. He's now retired. He's about 86, 87 years old, lives down in North Carolina. I had first heard about Sam, in the early 70s, I suppose, from my father-in-law at the time, Bobby Mead. And Bobby would start to tell stories about Sam himself, and he would start laughing. And then, as he thought about the story coming along as he told it, and then he'd go back to telling the story, and he'd stop and laugh some more. At any rate, I had heard about him, like I said, off and on through the years. And then about 3 years ago, I joined a Facebook site on F-105s, and my gosh, there was Sam. So I reached out to him and said, "Are you the same Sam Morgan that was in Bobby Mead's squadron?" And he wrote back and said, "Yes, I am," or "Yes, I am, I was." At any rate, we developed a little bit of a rapport, and I have come to really enjoy this guy. I have often thought I was 10 years behind my time in the Air Force. And when I read these stories, I know that for a fact. I missed the boat on that. But at any rate. So Sam sent me a couple videos. I might see if I can integrate them into the site because they are videos of him in his own words. Today I'm going to share his words with you just right off the script he sent to me. But one of the things he said to me when I first talked to him was, he says, "Bob," he says, "I need you to know how sorry I am for the way I worked over your father-in-law when I was one of his captains." He said he didn't deserve that. And as I read these stories to you in the next few days, you'll begin to see what I mean. But I'll tell you this, I don't know the man that well, but I know I've flown with him all my life, and I just love this guy dearly. So without further ado, the first story I have this morning, and I'm just going to read it to you, is called F-100 Wire Strike, and it took place in Korea in the early 60s. So Sam says, "I think it was 1962, maybe 61. Bart and I were sent to Osan in an F-100F, which is the 2-seater, the family model, for Armed Forces Day. We had the night off, so we took a taxi to Pyeongtaek for an evening at the Officers Club. We were carrying on at the bar, eating raw steak and yelling and hollering. There were a bunch of Korean girls in the room wearing evening dresses, and Bart kept yelling, 'What are these hookers doing in the Officers Club?' Finally, some guy came up and announced he was the colonel in charge of the post, and he had had as much of us as he could stand. He was in the process of heaving us out when another colonel came up, announced he was in charge of the helicopter units, and he wanted us to stay. So we stayed, and I don't remember how the evening ended, but we awoke in a tent the next morning with a sergeant shining our boots. You had to wear Class A uniforms when off base at Korea. He said we had made a hit the night before, and there was a helicopter waiting to take us wherever we wanted to go. We did not feel so well, so we opted to take the ride back to Osan. We flipped a coin, and I lost, so Bart went to the alert pad and to bed, and I went to the flight line to stand by the airplane. About mid-afternoon, Bart came hopping down, fresh as a daisy, and said, 'Let's go.' I told him that we had to stay until 5 o'clock, and he said, 'Bullshit.' So we climbed in, cranked, and tossed the ladder off onto the ramp and started taxiing through the crowd. Me in the back, Bart in front. We had 450-pound fuel tanks and lots of fuel, but also a 450-knot limit. As we climbed out, Bart said, 'We can't go back without saying goodbye to our Army friends.' And I said, 'Of course not.' We were about 20,000 feet, and below us we could see hundreds of tents in very neat rows and columns with a broad main street right down the middle, all dirt roads. Bart nosed over with the burner lit and headed down. I told him we were over the tank limit. He said he didn't worry about that. Soon we were very low and at a very high speed coming down Main Street. To give you an idea of the altitude, we almost made it under the wires, but not quite. We hit and I hollered that we had hit something. Bart said he didn't feel it. I told him to look back at my canopy where it was scratched opaque, except for two little white bands, one on each side. I could also see damage to the tanks. Bart pulled up and we headed for Japan. He suggested we go out over the Sea of Japan, bail out, and claim it caught on fire. I vetoed the idea and told them they would know why it caught on fire. We landed at Itazuki after dark on a Friday night, so the only guy on the flight line was a guy to set the chocks. We got out of the airplane, and he said something like, "Holy shit, what'd you guys hit?" We told him to put the bird in the hangar, we would be back. Our maintenance officer was Mother Hubbard, and we had squadron maintenance. We went to the club, got Mother, and returned to the hangar. As we walked in, he said something to the effect, "Holy shit, what'd you guys hit?" We told him we had already gone through that with the mechanic. Could we fix it? We worked with the mechanics all weekend, putting on a new canopy, new tanks, and some skin patching on the rudder, which was what cut the wires. On Monday, things seemed to be quiet, so at 2 o'clock, Bart came and suggested we go to the club to celebrate the Great Escape. We were at the bar celebrating when Max Beale came in and ordered us to attention and read Article 32 of the UCMJ. It turns out we had not noticed the skin missing on top of the nose. Charlie McLaren had gone out to fly the airplane, and as he topped the ladder, he glanced down at the nose to see nothing but ribs and radios. We were grounded and the investigation started. Many times I was asked if I was innocent, and I had to say we were both equally guilty, although I probably wouldn't have gotten under the wires. After a month, where I was the permanent range officer, and Bart, I think, was the permanent mobile officer, they had a big trial, like a real criminal trial. After deliberations, they announced that it really wasn't our fault, but it was the lack of training. That, indeed, with the right training, we would have made it under the wires. I have to pause here. You think you could get away with that today? Anyway, they started with the punishment phase, and we were starting to say that Bart and I could not fly together for a month when our flight commander, Bob Middlebrooks, hopped up from the back and said, "Hold it, Colonel, I think you're being too hard on the boys." Bart then hopped up and told Middlebrooks to be quiet. After the little discussion, the court agreed and announced that we would take a low-level training mission over Korea with Middlebrooks in the back as our instructor. The Army never complained. This is a spirit that resides in my heart. Like I said, I've not met Sam in person, but my God, it's as if when I read this story and a few others that are going to come along your way here over the next couple days, I have flown with this guy in spirit. So I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope you enjoyed meeting Sam, and we'll be talking with you again soon. Thanks for stopping by today.